Notes back. The chair now recognizes the ranking member, Mr. Raskin, for an opening statement.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and thanks for providing some much-needed comic relief from all of the tragedy and pain surrounding us in America today by bringing forward surely the funniest legislative initiative of the Congress, a Republican constitutional amendment to address a problem that Republicans created and that Republicans have systematically failed to address, even though they've got all of the necessary legislative tools at their disposal. I refer, of course, to gigantic runaway federal budget deficits that result from out-of-control Republican spending and stupendously reckless Republican tax cuts for billionaires and giant corporations. But there's no need to take my word for it. As a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, our colleague Mr. Roy at the House Rules Committee meeting preceding the vote on the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill described it as garbage and pointed out the obvious. If we're going to do tax policy, at least do spending policy. Have the courage and fortitude to do what you campaign on when you're talking about balancing our dang budget. That's right, Republicans control the House. Republicans control the Senate. Republicans control the White House. Republicans effectively control the Supreme Court, and yet they have not once balanced the federal budget or even tried to present a balanced budget for legislative consideration in this Congress. So to cover up for their pathetic capitulation of Donald Trump, who has 6 Chapter 11 bankruptcies to his name, by the way, more bankruptcies than impeachments, although fewer bankruptcies, it's true, than criminal convictions, and to cover up for their unceasing giveaways to the Jeffrey Epstein and Elon Musk class of financial and sexual predators, they now want to start finger painting all over the U.S. Constitution. That's right, they want us to use our Constitution to make them do what they claim they want to do at a time when they already possess the complete power in government to do it. Oh, and in the process, they'll put our entire government for all time in a fiscal straitjacket, so truly responsible leaders, like Franklin D. Roosevelt, for example, won't have the flexibility to deal with real economic crises created by Republicans like Herbert Hoover, Calvin Coolidge, and Donald Trump. The simple truth is that we don't need a constitutional amendment to balance the budget or have responsible fiscal policies. With one-party control of the government and nonstop blather about the importance of balancing budgets, Republicans could simply do it right now if they wanted to. But billionaire rip-off artists like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or Donald Trump, they don't get rich off of balanced budgets. They get rich when the gangster state opens the spigots of taxpayer money in federal contracts and giveaways for billionaires and the high-flying rent-seeking corporate class. Republicans have run up historic corrupt deficits of this Congress and have never once submitted a single balanced budget. They may as well be introducing a constitutional amendment saying that federal agents shouldn't shoot American citizens in the face for exercising their First Amendment rights, or a constitutional amendment saying that federal agents shouldn't strip firearms from people lawfully carrying them under state law in the Second Amendment and then shoot them 10 times simply for disagreeing with Stephen Miller and the president. We don't need a constitutional amendment to force the majority to do the right thing. That's hopeless. We need a new majority. You don't need a constitutional amendment to comply with the law or to do the right thing. You just do it. History proves we don't need a constitutional amendment to budget responsibly. In the 1990s, President Bill Clinton, a Democrat, worked with a Republican-controlled Congress to eliminate the deficit completely, and the federal government ran a huge surplus for several years running without the aid of a contrived balanced budget constitutional amendment cooked up by some political consultant. Clinton bequeathed to his successor, George W. Bush, a $236 billion federal surplus. But history shows that nearly every time a Democratic administration has put our fiscal house in order, Republicans have taken it as an opportunity to pass more giant giveaways for corporations and billionaires and blown massive holes in our budget. For example, the policies of President George W. Bush and his GOP Congress squandered the record federal budget surpluses of the Clinton years on tax cuts for the wealthy and the staggeringly costly forever wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan. 2017, President Trump and a GOP Congress passed a so-called Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, a law that increased the federal deficit by an astounding $1.9 trillion. At the time, no president had ever added more money to our deficit. But then last year, the GOP passed the obscenely ugly profligate law, which will add an unprecedented and jaw-dropping $4 trillion to the national debt because of its obscene giveaways to billionaires with the mega seal of approval. Of course, they paid for just a small fraction of this profligacy by stripping health insurance and food assistance from tens of millions of working class Americans who are now living with these Marie Antoinette policies that came out of the Trump White House. So, Mr. Chairman, I will only support a constitutional amendment compelling Republicans to finally balance the budget if it also compels them to stop throwing money at billionaires, to crack down on record corruption and profit-taking by their incorrigible president, and to get their private army in ICE to start complying with the Constitution, like the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, and the Fifth Amendment. Maybe we could even pass a constitutional amendment to compel President Trump to respect the Constitution. Let's have a hearing on that topic. I yield back.
Back without